Let's call the police. Give me your baseball bat. I've got a new toy, and it's the SEGA Megadrive Arcade Power Stick. Yes, it's been a while since I've done a joystick review, and well, it may have actually been more than 2, maybe 3 years since I've last reviewed one, and that was this little sucker here, the NES Advantage. At the time I mentioned that the buttons are kind of sticking, and the SEGA Megadrive Arcade Power Stick does not have that problem. The buttons have really nice centering qualities to them. I have the stick for about 2 weeks now, and I have done some tests with it. I've already taken it apart to see what it's like inside. The inside is remarkably similar to a NES Advantage. I expect that this thing is probably made by ASCIIware. There are some rumors that ASCIIware also made the original NES Advantage, and that it was just a rebadged Famicom joystick that they have kind of customized for Nintendo, but I think they also did something similar for Sega. Well, the SEGA Megadrive Arcade Power Stick has 3 buttons, your A, B and C button, and it has rapid fire functions, and Sega calls it Mega Fire. And there's also a slider switch that allows you to control the rate. Unlike the NES Advantage, you cannot change the firing rate of the buttons individually. This is a global switch. I think that the base is quite nice. It has a nice armrest. It's nice and hefty. The buttons are quite nice on this one. They're concave and they center really well. My only gripe with it is that the stick is a little bit loosey-goosey. That one doesn't really hold up to a true arcade stick. It has no micro switches. It's based on gamepad technology, just like the NES Advantage, and this one doesn't seem to center all that well. Just like the NES Advantage, it uses some kind of ball bearing thing with a spring, and it's a little bit primitive because it uses those rubber dome pads like a gamepad, so its centering qualities are not that great. It's a little bit mushy, but overall I think the ball has quite a nice grip to it. I mean, you can firmly grip it, and the buttons, they are quite nice. Unlike the NES Advantage, they actually center quite nicely. Of course, how does this compare to other 16-bit sticks? Well, here is the ASCIIware Super Advantage, a stick I've never reviewed because I think it's crap. Yeah, even though it has individual rapid fire on it, and even here there are some special settings, what I just don't like about it are the buttons. It has the same problem as the NES Advantage, but it's in fact worse because there are so many more buttons. So I'm not reviewing this one. The fact that it has so much dust on it shows it's never being used. Compared to the NES Advantage, I think the SEGA Arcade Power Stick is quite a nice joystick. It's not that difficult to find. They are not rare, they're quite common, unlike the 6-button version, which is a bit harder to find and quite a little bit more expensive. I bought mine for about 30 euros, and that's about the price you find them for in a loose condition. And it's one thing I do recommend is to clean up the contacts a little bit. You can use contact cleaner for that, just to remove a little bit of the oxidization from the contact pads and to rejuvenate it a little bit. But yeah, let's look at this thing in action. So we're going to test it out with both the Mega Drive and the Master System. Even though it's marketed as a Mega Drive stick, it also works quite marvelously with the Master System. So let's test it out with a arcade game, and it's going to be Streets of Rage. So we're going to do a little bit of Streets of Rage with this thing. As you can see, the stick has quite a nice feel to it. The ball really has a nice arcade feel. And in a game especially like Streets of Rage, you really get that proper arcade feel with nice buttons. Now we're going to demonstrate the Mega Fire. I'm going to do this on the punch. So now I enable it, and now I just slowly increase the rate a little bit. And now I decrease. You have to let the button loose to change the effect, because if you change the slider whilst you're doing it, you don't really see much difference in the effect. So our next demo is going to be Streets of Rage on the Sega Master System. I thought it was very fitting to show the same game. This also gives a little bit of a comparison between the two versions. And I'll show you that it's quite a marvelous joystick for the Master System too. So let's enable the Mega Fire. See, that is pretty fast. I hope it shows up on the monitor, because the screen may be a little bit small. I quite like this slidey thing here. You can just pretty much flick it on the fly. The position of it is really nice. Especially if you're playing like this and you push the Mega Fire button and you slide it. And if you want to disable it, you just slide it again. It's all very quick and easy. As you can see, the stick has quite a nice feel to it. You can weight your hand in it like this. You have quite decent control, and I also quite like the layout of the buttons here and the armrest or the handrest. It gives a nice firm grip of the joystick. What I also quite like is the position here of the Mega Fire. For instance, if you want to enable it, you can just click one of the buttons, flick it, and if you want to disable it, you just do this, boom. And also you can quite easily enable, disable buttons on the fly like this. This is, I think, kind of similar to the NES Advantage, although the position is just a little bit more convenient. And you also see these LEDs that light up. I don't know if they kind of show up on the camera, but I quite like these LEDs and how they are positioned like this. Also, the stick has quite a nice metal base. There's quite a bit of weight to it. Kind of similar to the NES Advantage. Yeah, it's pretty much a NES Advantage made by Sega or for Sega. I mean, the similarities are just so striking in a way. So my final verdict for the Sega Megadrive Arcade Power Stick. I think it's quite a marvelous stick. Pretty nice buttons, nice feel. My only gripe is that it uses gamepad technology and that the stick is just a little bit loosey-goosey, especially here on the right direction. If I just tap it, it seems a little bit looser in that direction. So if you like arcade sticks and you need just a good solid one, then I highly recommend getting one for your Mega Drive or Master System. So there you have it, that was the Sega Mega Drive Arcade Power Stick in action. I think it's quite neat. It's quite a nice compact little stick. If you are not particularly hot on having all sorts of different joysticks, like a home built DIY joystick, and you just need to have just one joystick, then I'd say get one of these. They're quite decent if you can live with the minor gripes like the slightly loose stick. It's well worth the money. Yeah, good decent stick, and also highly recommended for Sega Master System, because there aren't really any better joysticks for that unless you go to Japan and find some kind of ASCII-ware joystick. If you come across one in the wild, I'd say get one. So that was the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and thanks for watching.